Welcome to 6 African Trade Talks, the show that brings you closer to the intra-Africa trade business world. I'm your host, Chad Chawanda. In this episode, our guest is Maryben Omollo. Maryben is an entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, mental health activist, and CEO of Greeneseal Limited. Maryben, welcome to 6 African Trade Talks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Before we start our show, we'd like to hear a word from our sponsors.
Would you travel to Cape Town for business or leisure? What if you could combine the two? Well, you can with Optimum African Experience Cape Town Leisure Experience, with partners such as University of Cape Town, CEDA, Kadena, Luminary, and Prime Focus. Experience the best of Africa.
Maryben, congratulations on being recognized under the Top 40 Under 40 Africa 2022. Can you please tell us a little bit about who Maryben is, your journey?
Thank you for having me on this podcast today. And Maryben is a 31-year-old lady, rather a woman empowerment. I have been in business since 2012, actually, which I didn't do so well. Reason being, I didn't understand much about business, anything to do with careers. It wasn't my thing because I used to be an underperformer. And my teachers used to frustrate me about it so much. So I didn't pay so much attention about myself. But here we are right now. When I started that journey, being a businesswoman, I ventured into different careers. I was a marketer. I tried sales and marketing. And even computer networking. You can imagine, I had no interest in computer networking, but when you're a young youth and then people are talking, you're being told you can do this, you can do that. So I even tried computer networking, and later I discovered it was not my thing. So I had to enroll in different universities because I was self-paying my fees. So I had to pick on what favors me. So I did business management because at first I thought I wanted to be a manager of this big company. I remember my mom used to tell me that you need to get a job so you can get a loan. That's typically an African mindset. And I don't blame her because that's how we've been brought up as Africans. You finish school, you get a job, you can get a loan and all that. So that was what I had vision for. And it was a lack of career directions, even for the younger ones who are coming up. Majority of them, most of them don't have career direction. But I later realized it worked for my good because I have ended up being an entrepreneur. Then I've spoke about, I did computer networking. I didn't understand it so much. When I did sales and marketing, it's because I had a passion for marketing. And that is what I'm doing now in my organization. I'm more of a marketer. I have this notation that marketing is all about appreciating what you do, who you are, and what you're offering. That is basically a human being's existence, or rather a human being's life. If you have to tell someone what you're doing, that's marketing. And if you don't love it, you will not give them a value proposition of who you are. So that's why I did have a passion for it and I love it. So before being an entrepreneur, I worked with different organizations like I had mentioned earlier, such as Safaricom, MultiChoice. I also worked with Tiles and Carpet. I ended up being a receptionist, you can imagine. All this was I had to learn what is it that these guys have done to build a successful empire. Majority of us work in places and we don't love our jobs, or we're just there to earn a salary. But my vision was to learn, how is it possible, or how did they do it? How did they build any successful empire? So it took a lot of time of sacrifice, imaginable decisions, and we had to set up a system that can run this. And that's where I developed much interest into entrepreneurship. And I learned it's never one man's show.
Interesting. What a journey. Thank you very much for sharing. And yet you're still just 31 years old. So that's amazing. Prior to being the CEO of your company, you worked in various capacities in various companies across Kenya, as you mentioned. What one or two things that inspired you to move from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Actually, I lost my job in 2015. And when I lost my job at that time, I was hopeful that I would get a job. But after 3 years, that is in 2017, I hadn't gotten any job. By the time we got into 2017, I registered the company. And my first mission with that company was not to transform lives, but to earn a living. I just wanted to earn a living. What really pushed me was that in as much as I wanted to start a company or start an NGO instead of staying at home, I realized a lot of women in that stage of me being out of work, I tried getting different jobs. I couldn't. I started going out talking about my problems, and nobody felt pity on me. There are those who wanted to take advantage of my situation. And a lot happened in between there. I ended up being depressed. I tried committing suicide several times. I think actually 5 to be precise. I got pregnant. The guy was not ready to take care of the pregnancy. So in the 5th month, I lost the pregnancy. At that time, I asked myself, what can I do to really, really feel satisfied or to help somebody else who is in this situation? And that's when I registered my current company, Greeneseal, in that 2017. But at the same time, it also failed. It failed because you can imagine I didn't have that direct vision. My vision was not clear on what I want to do. So I was doing 5 things. I was doing general supplies, interior, events, because I didn't have a clear vision. I was operating from a point of being hurt, rejected, being disappointed, but I want to just do something. Then come 2019, I rebranded it. I rebranded it to cleaning and pest control. There's always a blessing in disguise because the failures led me to this road. If I wasn't successful, perhaps I wouldn't have learned what I learned. Most of the times we look at negative challenges and not the lessons that we need to learn in this journey of life. So when I rebranded in 2019, end of 2019 is when now I got my own purpose that I'm going to do cleaning and pest control, but I'm going to work with young single mothers. So I came up with my own slogan. I'm not just going to clean the environment. I'm going to also clean hearts. So I always say I'm not only the cleaner of environment, but I'm also a cleaner of hearts.
Very touching. Thank you very much for sharing your journey and your experience and your good heart to want to help others whilst doing business. So you are running a social enterprise to some extent. For someone who has previously worked as an employee and ended up starting their own business, how has that background of being an employee helped you navigate your business, your own business?
Actually, there's something I came to learn, that we have this notion that client is always right. That has always been our notion. Anywhere you go, we always say client is always right. But I realize the term client is always right doesn't apply everywhere. Your employee comes first as a client, because a happy employee, a happy client. So when I was an employee, and I remembered one of the companies, it was a textile company, and you'd get, not everyone would be kind to you. Someone would feel like you're a salesperson, and probably they feel like you're not highly educated. And I've realized that is a problem with us Africans. We like looking down at other people. So they would come into the room or to the showroom, and someone would start insulting you. They would insult you. They would tell you how uneducated you are. And probably you're even educated, but this is your passion. And our directors and managers, they would feel like we are on the wrong. So they would literally start insulting us, giving us warnings. But I asked myself, do they even take a minute to ask and understand what really transpired? And what has made me even act differently with my employees is when a client starts complaining, fine, I'll apologize to the client, but I would want to find the root of the problem. What really transpired? What really happened? And you'd get, in most cases, it's not even the employee who's on the wrong. It's actually the client who's very rude, very self-centered, and literally doesn't want to understand anything. So I changed my notion from the client is always right to having it 50-50. I need to understand what really happened. Yes, to take care of my employees and also to take care of the client. And it has really worked.
Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing. You're a very passionate woman and about women as well. As a woman yourself, with the experience that you've gone through, what can you share with a woman entrepreneur who's looking at venturing it in Africa, whether they're from outside Africa or they're African, based on your experience operating in Kenya, which is one of Africa's larger economies? What's your experience to another lady?
What I can tell them is that I like saying, before considering myself as a woman, I see myself as a human being, meaning I remove the barriers from my mind that I'm just a female. There are many challenges that women face in modern workplaces and businesses around the world, but it doesn't have to stop her. That's what I normally say. It doesn't have to stop you. These issues are never more of a challenge than when a woman decides that she's going to go off on her own. Like, stand up, you're going to do this. If you decide literally that this is what you want to do, I always say, in as much as you're a woman, entrepreneurship is a challenge. There are challenges like gender biases, defying social expectations, struggling to be taken seriously in the office. You're trying to own your own accomplishment. And that has been a challenge that as women owning our own accomplishments, the society feels like you're too boastful. So majority of us don't talk about it, or rather majority don't talk. They feel like they just have to keep silent because the society will judge you harshly. So for me, I always say it's important as women to realize that relatively there are new economic realities, which is that there are opportunities around the world for us. Opportunities means that there are chance to succeed. It doesn't mean that things are equal or you will be able to succeed. There are times you'll try, it will fail. But if only it was that simple, everyone would be there. It requires a woman who is ready to face it. Things are not necessarily equal, even for men. You see, there are men who suffer, like right now in Kenya. A lot of us have been trying to champion even for men equality, but we have to fight it, though it's not only a women typical to go the extra mile.
Interesting. Thank you very much for sharing. Before we continue, we'd like to hear a word from our sponsors.
Would you travel to Cape Town for business or leisure? What if you could combine the two? Well, you can with Optimum African Experience Cape Town Pleasure Experience, with partners such as University of Cape Town, CEDA, Kadena, Luminary, and Prime Focus. Experience the best of Africa.
Maryben, so tell us more about Greeneseal Limited and the work that you do as a company that cares about charity and the environment.
Yes, actually, with Greeneseal Limited, we do cleaning and pest control services across Kenya, and we are hoping to transfer to Rwanda, Uganda. And what makes us so unique is that we work with young single mothers because of my own personal story. So after I had recovered from depression, I decided, what am I going to do in the society? Not just existing to clean. You know, when people are building an empire, we always want to do something for ourselves. What can I gain from this? This is my company. This is what I'm building. I don't care about what other people are doing or what other people are feeling. It's just us. We become so mean. But I told myself, I want to exist for a purpose. So when I rebranded in 2019, from general supplies and interior design and a bit of Kahaya, I rebranded it to pure cleaning and pest control. So when we started now the cleaning and pest control in 2019, by 2020, I asked myself, what will I do differently that other cleaning and pest control company are doing? And one thing that came into my mind, I remembered my pain. And I said, okay, I'm not going to live with this pain for quite a long time. I'm going to turn my pain into gain. That is when I started working with these single mothers, and it helped me to change their lives because it helped me to develop a growth mindset with them. And also for myself, it helped me create a personal vision and statements, even for the single mothers, because there are a couple around 10 who've been able to start their own company. We've been training them in hospitality. We've even helped them get jobs like stewards. When I say stewards, we have the cleaning stewards, and we also have the hotel stewards. So we've helped some of them get jobs in hotels. There are some who are waiters. There are those who are in domestic house management. And it has been a journey of fulfilling because through that, it now has birthed now to Greeneseal Foundation.
Interesting. Thank you very much for sharing. As a young entrepreneur, you're looking at expanding your business into East Africa. Where does that start? If you could share with someone looking at expanding into similar markets, East Africa, we're talking about intra-Africa trade. You are already going into that journey. Where does one start?
I have actually visited Uganda, Tanzania, and recently I went to Rwanda. And I realized that Kenya is a gateway to Eastern Africa market. I have experienced challenges such as behavior of our new target customers. You see, being that I'm a Kenyan, then you're going to Rwanda, there are a lot of things that before they even embrace you, it becomes a bit of challenge. So those communication channels, cultural differences in certain market regions, language barriers, and one of the biggest challenge I had was culture. Culture profoundly influences how people think, how they communicate, how they behave. It also affects the kind of transactions we will make and the way we negotiate them. I'll give an example of cultural factors affecting businesses like fashion trends, lifestyle, social media influence. I realize in Rwanda, they've not embraced the social media marketing. We were watching YouTube, and when you're on YouTube, there's always the advert that keeps on coming every 5 or 10 minutes. There was nothing. We even thought we were on premium. So I realized they don't have that. Dominant communication technology is actually in our social groups. I noticed it wasn't so good. And if we have now to tap that market, we have now to see how is it going to work. And being it's a small country, it's the size of Nairobi. So if we have to bring in our product, it means even our prices has to be customized to their own prices. It means our product has to be customized to their own culture and not what we want to do. So I would tell someone, for now, the main focus should be the market research for their own products. How do they want to get in it? Speak to government team, the parastatals, and just learn, will this product be accepted? If it won't be accepted, can they accept it at this price, or what can we do to penetrate in that market? And so for me, now my goal is to focus on their own culture, learn their culture more, embrace it. So by the time we start, we are able to sync together. So that's what I'll tell people. If you want to just invest in a different market, it's better you go learn their culture more and be ready to sync with it.
What you have just said brought a memory. I went to the DRC, to the Congo in Lubumbashi, and I was doing business with some Indians. They actually speak the local language. Yet, when you see other Africans from different parts of Africa going into new markets, they do not take time to learn the culture. So, very important lesson there. And the second lesson is traveling. You've gone to all the markets that you want to go to. I've come across a lot of people that talk about Africa, but if you ask them, where have you been to Africa, they've probably been to 2 countries only, but they have a whole perspective and view about Africa. So good that you're traveling, and thank you very much for sharing that insight.
Actually, before I forget, I even went to Ghana and Nigeria. And one thing I realized about the 2 countries is that Ghana, it's a very rich country. It has all the natural resources that it requires to grow. And Nigeria, I would blame their government. I realized Nigeria has carried the brightest mindsets. Those guys are very, very, very bright. They can transform the whole of Africa. But again, if we don't learn this culture, we don't travel, it will be so hard for us to penetrate the market.
Certainly. Thank you very much. You were recently appointed National Coordinator of the AFCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation, AFYEF. Tell us more about that.
So, yes, I'm actually the national coordinator. And as African youth forms the majority of population, these youths are often unemployed. And those who are employed, they don't stay longer in their business. And one thing about AFTAC and AFIEF, with the upcoming of AFTA, we believe that is the surest way to help us create employment for the youths through entrepreneurship. And this is one thing we are trying to make Africa learn, entrepreneurship, because there's a difference between a business person and entrepreneur. So nowadays we always categorize everyone to be an entrepreneur. So for AFTA to succeed, we decided to be deliberate about our plan, to make it as a train to fund, develop African SMEs, especially the young entrepreneurs and women. We are trying to focus both on women and youth. So we met the African World Bank, who have literally invested over 30 million people who would be brought about to fight poverty by 2035. That is if AFTA is well implemented. Now, the RFF is a baby to AFTA, whereby it's giving room now for the young entrepreneurs, the baby entrepreneurs like myself. Let me say, like myself, I will not be able to fight or rather compete with guys like Safaricom. Safaricom has been in the market for a very long time. They have over billions of returns. And after AFF is now looking for ways, how are they going to assist the young youths, mobilize the young youths to deliver or rather to participate in the AFTA. So far, we have 48 states that have ratified the AFTA, with just 4 remaining to get the ball rolling. AFTA will reduce and eliminate tariff and non-tariff regimes, allowing a single open market across Africa. But for this to happen, there's no direct effort to educate and equip the youths, who are the majority. Our youth are the majority in Africa to be positioned for this, like I'd mentioned earlier. So we are plugging in and we want to bring change across Africa. In the Eastern Africa, we have Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. Rwanda just started there. They joined us the other day. And we are hoping that we'll be able to set these chapters in each and every country so that the young entrepreneurs can be able to fight for their own market. We will not be able to fight for AFTA. AFTA doesn't have space for the young entrepreneurs, but AFIA does. And by 2025, we are hoping to have deliberate 30 million youths from poverty and even help them change their mindset, because it's in Africa that we complain we are jobless, there's no job opportunities. But Africa is a very rich continent. We have tea, we have coffee, we have diamond, we have gold, name it all. So we want to be able to train these youths to see the available opportunities in their own continent and able to trade within the same continent. Like Kenyans will be able to trade with Ghanaians in terms of shea butter, and us will be able to transport coffee or tea to them. We will be able to transport gold. Another country will be able to transport diamond just within Africa. So that's what AFTA and AFF is all about.
Thank you very much for sharing. I've got a little bit of mixed feelings because 2 years ago I was a youth. Last year was actually when I turned 36 in December. So I understand where you're coming from. And because I'm transitioning, moving away from the youth space, I think that we all have a role to play. We need to make sure that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area becomes something that we all can benefit and we all can drive, because it's not just about the benefit, it's also about driving it to create value. So it's interesting the space you are playing in. Kenya has become a thriving startup hub. We've seen millions of dollars poured by investors as foreign enterprises set up shop there. Despite many startups struggle to stay afloat and some are forced to shut down. We recently saw the likes of Kune Foods and SWVI close shop, even with funding. Are we missing something? What can you share from Kenya?
I would say for people who are looking to invest in Kenya, Kenya is a good space. We have a very youthful workforce, which is very innovative, but with no funding. Given a chance in funding, no matter what kind of investments we are getting, with this kind of mindset that they have right now and they have created, investors will be able to get returns on their own investments, because right now Kenyans have suffered in terms of unemployment. In fact, the youths, and I have seen them try so much to become innovative. And another thing I would say about Kenya is that Kenya is the dominant economy in the East Africa community, the EAC. It's contributing approximately, I think, 50% of the GDP across Eastern Africa, being that it's located within the Eastern Africa community, and it provides investors access to a wider consumers market, up to 400 million people in the EAC and even COMESA region. So it puts Kenya at a good market. I'd say Kenya has the youngest and the fastest growing population, and it's a guarantee for economic development in all angles. When I visited Uganda, I'm sorry to say it's still slow. They're very, very slow in their own development, but we are hoping they'll get there. Rwanda is really trying. And I was telling people Rwanda is the new Wakanda for Africa. They've really done a good job. And as much as the population is a bit low, but it's growing, I'm hoping Kenya will still remain to be the top. And then we visited Tanzania. Tanzania is also upcoming, but still Kenya is at the top. It's great potential for scalability, being considered as a world third country. There is enough room for growth in Kenya.
Thank you. Any podcast or book you'd like to recommend to our audience?
I just finished reading Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. It's one of the books that helps a lot of people who are struggling with procrastination. That has been my problem. I loved procrastinating so much, and reading that book has really helped me. And I'm currently starting on $1 Million Speaking by Alan Wells. They say old habits never die. So I'm really trying to stay away from the old habits and struggling to shade it off. So I believe anyone who's struggling with procrastination, they should try and read the Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. It's a very good book.
Would you travel to Cape Town for business or leisure? What if you could combine the two? Well, you can with Optimum African Experience Cape Town Leisure Experience, with partners such as University of Cape Town, CEDA, Kadena, Luminary, and Prime Focus. Experience the best of Africa.
Africa is a continent full of potential, but potential means nothing if we don't take action to create value. Let us take action. Thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to post and share this episode on your social media platforms. It will help us reach our mission of sharing knowledge about intra-Africa trade and making it available to as many people as possible. Let us grow our continent. We can go far, fast, together. If you can please leave a review on our podcast page or on Apple Podcasts.